This is Anonymous Bells. I'm Megan Turner and I'm here with Colleen Ellis as usual. And we're hoping to offer writing, editing, and publishing advice to a literary minded audience. Today, we're talking about point of view or POV and how to use it effectively, why it's essential to good writing, how to manipulate it in your favor. I guess that's a lot, but um, yeah, so we have a lot to discuss. This is one of my, I don't know, favorite topics slash pet peeves. Um,
Yes.
and I think we're talking about two things. So we're talking about um, sort of what POV are you writing in? Whose head are we in? And then also, the decision of like, are we writing in first person or third person? We could potentially write in second person, but not very many people do that. So,
But it won't be good.
yeah, we don't recommend that. Yeah, so I guess we'll dive in. But I guess the first question is, what is POV and why is it so confusing? I think especially for new writers. I don't know if that's true, but like what makes it sort of like I feel like again and again I have when I'm working with a new writer, they're like, what? I don't understand. So Colleen,
Yeah,
take it
well,
away.
I loved your intro because I was just thinking we do like I hope these conversations benefit other writers, but
Mhm.
selfishly, I just like to talk to you about writing.
Yeah.
I feel like I think through a lot of things with you, and we're going to talk about something that I feel like you taught me as a writer, which is head hopping. Head hopping, TM trademark.
Yeah.
Again. We'll get to that in a second,
Yeah.
but yeah, I just love to kind of talk through these things with you, and it makes the writing a little less lonely.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as you know, point of view, I'm like a self-described first person
Hmm.
junkie. I love first person. It's my favorite point of view to write in. I try to write in third person. Sometimes like Colleen, take a break. You need to write. And I feel myself sliding back and it's more natural
Yeah.
for me. It's most fitting for like my voice, I think, to be in first person. I think I like to just in fiction embody the character. I don't want any barriers. I don't want any narrative layers. I don't want any editorial voice. I just want to like be the character, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's role playing or something, but that tends to be what I like to do. But I worry that it like is wearying for readers because sometimes that's like a little exhausting. Um,
Yeah, I've heard people talk about how they even like reading, they prefer one, like they prefer first or they prefer third, and they like won't
yeah.
read things that are if they're written in like one of those POVs. And I don't know. I mean, to me, I think maybe I do tend toward third. Um, but I also feel like I try to listen to sort of like what the story is and what is going to benefit the story the most. And sometimes I've started a story in third and then switched to first, or started in first and switched to third. So I think those like first couple pages, I'm trying to sort of feel that out. Um, I mean, I think there are benefits to both, but so I think it's good to sort of use both and to have, not within the same story, but uh, but like to try, for that story that you're working on to see what makes the most sense. I think for me, I like third because it feels like I can have some distance too. Um, and um, but yeah, I mean, I think first can also be really a great way to get like capture the voice and get like really into the head of the character. And
Mhm.
of course, we have like close third too, which is really almost almost first.
Yeah.
So yeah, um, I don't know. I really think it's important to be sort of like open and and like let yourself like try both. Um, so that's my
Yeah,
take.
it winds up being a really impactful choice, right? Because once you've locked into one, it does change how you can tell a story because who can know things, who can think things, how does an and as you're moving through plot points, you have to consider that all the time. I remember
Mhm.
I read a book once where like I can't remember the details exactly, but it was first person, but then there was this scene of these other two characters talking, and I was like, how does this character how is she privy
Yeah,
to that scene? Like I had no, there
yeah.
was no connection. So,
I think we've talked about like in our workshop the Amor Towels book that has first and third, and it is really troubling. It is like sort of like what are you doing?
oh
Because I think
man,
it is tough to have both of those in
yeah,
your story, and I think you kind of do have to make that decision early on of like, what POV am I going to be in, and how am I going to stick with it, and how's that going to inform the story. So yeah, it's a limit in a way to yourself, like as a writer.
Mhm.
But I don't think that's a bad a bad thing. I think sometimes you need that sort of restraint. Um, yeah. So I think we've kind of covered our second question, but about sort of like how we make the decision to write in a certain POV. Um, but I don't know, we're moving too quickly through this, but let's talk about POV, like multiple points of view, and sort of having how to navigate that, and when it's like too much, and when we need
Yeah.
to not have that many point of views, you know.
Because multiple points of views with first person gets, for me, ultra tricky, right?
Hmm.
Because now the characters need to sound different and be
Hmm.
different.
Hmm.
And like, I feel like what's that? Um, what's that movie Sybil with Sally Fields where I'm like, it's just all my personalities coming out one at a time.
Yeah.
But the challenge is to make them all like feel as unique as possible, but you're still you and you're the writer and it's still your voice. And so it's
Yeah.
hard to fully obfuscate like your own voice sometimes. So I think multiple POVs, maybe third or
Yeah.
close would be easier to do. That's not to say I do it that way, but
Yeah, no,
maybe that's
yeah, I think I
easier.
agree. Yeah, I mean, I think if you're in first, you really feel like you're getting to know that character, and then if you have to have a really distinct, different kind of voice for it to work. And I think sometimes it's like it's a guy and a girl, or it's like a younger person and an older person. I think
Yeah.
it works really well with like books where the two authors are in there, and they've written like what
Yes.
is that book that's like it's like Nora's Infinite Playlist or something like that, where it's two characters and one author's writing one voice and one author's writing the other voice, and that really works because they already have their own style and their own voice,
Yes. Yes.
um, but yeah, I think I agree with you for like third. It's easier if you're gonna have multiple points of view, I think, to have it in third. um,
Yeah.
and have you ever written, like, do you usually write multiple points of view, or do you usually just write one? I think you are usually
As I've gone on, I've started to incorporate more points
yeah.
of view. In my current working project, I know,
Oh,
like
right.
two
I
are
don't
I, I'm doing everything wrong with it, but two of the voices are first and one
right.
is third, and I have
Yeah.
reasons for
As
that.
I
And
just said, not to do it.
you're like,
Don't do
never do
that.
that. I'm like, well, I just did. I like it, but we'll see. I'm
Yeah.
still working on the book, so who knows? But I have my reasons I won't go into, but
Yeah.
I don't know. And sometimes I think maybe I should plan these things out better before I just dive in, but I tend to just kind of dive in because I think I don't yet know either. If
Hmm.
like what you were saying, where you go back and you do 10 pages or something, and then you're like, actually, let's see how
Right.
this feels in a different line. And I don't know. Maybe I think sometimes just you discover it as you go.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, I just feel like if I've gone more than 50 pages in, and it's gonna be a disaster. So I feel like I'm
Really
really going to
hard.
pay attention to like the first few pages and seeing like, okay, does this work, or do I really? And that's true for like past or present tense or different things, like those
Yes.
decisions. I think you have to make pretty early on, but like maybe giving yourself like 10 to 20 pages of space just to think about like, how do I feel about this, and is it working? But yeah, so I don't know, with multiple points of view. um, I don't know if it's like more of a trend now. Like I feel like when I first started writing, people just didn't do it that much. And now I feel like almost everything I get, like that I'm editing, is multiple points of view. And I don't know why. I mean, I think maybe it feels exciting to have like to be that open and to have so many points of view. To me, I sort of like caution against it in a way because I feel like it can be really tricky, um, especially if it's more than like two people, like two characters. Say you get up to three or four or five, and then it's like, whoa, like how do I keep all these voices straight?
Yeah.
Um, and are they developed enough as a character? Like if you have three characters or four characters or five characters, can you like, are all of them developed enough? Like if you have that many, I think it starts to get really challenging to have a clear sense of how those characters are different. Um, so yeah, that brings us to our question, or the question that I have about head hopping.
Hopping. Megan, what is head hopping?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's not a term that I came up with, but I've started using it more because I think I used to like with with authors that I was working with say like, you're like switching point of views here, or like this is really awkward, or and they would be like, that's what I wanted to do, or and I'd be like, but and then I'd be like, no, but I don't think it was intentional. And so I think that's the difference of like if you have multiple points of view and you say, okay, one of my characters is Colleen and one of my characters is Megan, and those are the two voices. And when I'm in this scene, I'm with Megan, and when I'm with this other scene, I'm with Colleen. But like if you're in the same scene and you have five characters and you're going like from one character to the next character that's like head hopping. And I
Yeah.
think I mean, I talk about it a lot with authors that I work with, and they frequently get frustrated and they're like, I don't understand, or like, why can I not do that? Um, but I think it is like a sign of sort of more sophistication when you're able to do that purposefully and you're like, okay, I can't really, I'm in Megan's head right now. I can't really, I don't know what Colleen is thinking, you know?
Right. Right.
Um, so yeah, I think that's something to try to like avoid. And I don't know, when I was in workshop back in the day, I feel like I'm like this, like, oh, when I was learning to write,
When
like,
you were in your MFA program.
yeah, we would just circle stuff and write POV, and people were like, oh yeah, but now it's like, for some reason, I think there's like, well, why can't I do that? And I think it gets kind of confused with this sort of like omniscient kind of voice. And I don't
Hmm.
think that's what it is, because you don't have this like sort of all-knowing narrator. You have all these different people and you're hopping from one head to the next. So
Hmm.
I don't want to go on a long rant here about it, but I do try to like mark it and say like this is something that we don't really want, or that it has to be purposeful in a way. Um, yeah,
Yeah, or if you have the book where it's from page one to the end, it is an omniscient, godlike narrator, then that has to be consistent. Because I think
right.
too, we hone in on what's different. We're like, well, this doesn't fit. And
Hmm.
it's almost like, see, I feel like I say this a lot too, but it's almost like you can do what you want, but
Hmm.
do it consistently,
Yeah,
and then it makes it
yeah.
work. It's
Yeah, I
when
think
you, you know,
that's often the problem is like you started with one POV and then all of a sudden we're like in this other one that we didn't get for the first like 150 pages or something,
yeah,
or like yeah, those are not the rules that you set out, like if you
yes,
establish I'm having these two characters, those are the POVs I'm going to follow all the way through, then we've got it. But if all of a sudden there's like we've had one point of view and then all of a sudden there's a second one coming in, it's like, well, wait, why are we doing this? I think it has to be really intentional and purposeful. Like I'm thinking of the one book where there's like the first half of the book is one POV and the second half is the other second, and I think it's been done, but I think it has to be more like this is what I wanted to do from the start. It wasn't because I like got stuck,
yeah.
like, or I didn't know what to do,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I don't know. I think it happens more now because of TV. That's what I think, because when you're in a TV show, you can switch from head to head and it's not as confusing because you get like sort of that visual. I was thinking about like this the other day, like say you're watching, you're watching Frasier or something. Frasier is our main character, and we're almost always with Frasier, but there are episodes where we're not with Frasier and it's like Niles, and nobody's like, I mean, I think it is a little like if you don't have Frasier for like 3 or 4 episodes, you're like, what's
Where'd he
going on?
go? Yeah, what's
But you
going
can
on?
kind of switch occasionally and do that, and it's not disorienting because I think you have that visual sort of cue that you don't have when
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
reading. So yeah, I think it's like POV is sort of your return, like your home base of like
yeah,
this is whose head I'm in, and I know who my main character is, and I'm not like lost.
yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense to think about it that way. And maybe that's too why I like first person, because it's just always
Mhm.
like, what happens next to that person?
Mhm.
Like, let's find
I
out.
think I think it's actually harder than people think to like actually stick with one character and to stay with
Um,
that. Because I mean, you're writing like 250 to 300 pages of one character. It can be sort of like, oh my God, how am I going to fill in those pages? So I think that could be another reason to have that people like want to have multiple points of view because it feels like you now can like sort of stretch out the story.
mhm,
Um, but I think it actually can be really rewarding to only have one character, or to only have two, or to like be really specific about, this is I actually don't know this other character's point of view. I'm only in that one person's head, and I can't break away from that. Um, so yeah. I don't want to like discourage experimentation or
No,
anything, but
I
yeah.
think it's just like everything else. It's like, well, what should I choose? It's like, well, it depends. I don't, and I think try on
Mm-hmm.
past tense and present tense, try on
Hmm.
first person, third person, and shape it. And I don't know, like, because I don't know the answer sometimes of what to do, but
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is like just trying it out and seeing if it works, and then if it doesn't work, trying something different, but not trying it out halfway through the book
yeah,
because
yeah,
now
hopefully.
you've established the rules and you can't like kind of go back unless you're going to go back and change all of those first 50 pages, right?
Yeah, which is not as
It's,
easy as it sounds. You're not just
yeah.
changing like pronouns. You're like
Yeah.
revisioning, and that's really
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, because I think some people are like, oh, you just changed it from me from her to I, and it's
Yeah.
like
It
it's not.
sounds different. It sounds different if you do that. Like if you, I mean, I've thought about doing that and I might do that in some cases, but I really it's a lot of work. It's not like just an easy switch.
Yeah, it sounds easy, but it's not easy. Yeah. And why do we stay away from second person? Did we answer that? It's just hard to
Um,
keep that going.
yeah. I mean, there have been books that have been written in second person, like what is it, Bright Lights, Big City, um, and I think like Lori Moore did it a lot, and
Oh,
um, it's just tough to sustain that, I think, for a whole book. I think I've used it like occasionally in like in a short story in like a brief like sort of scene of like this character thinking to themselves or or not thinking like motivating themselves or something or trying to talking in that sort of like but I think it does if you don't do it right it can also feel like sort of a um, lecture like kind of a mandate or I don't know if that's the right word.
yeah. And I've heard it's alienating because if you say you're in a room that's cold and like you personally reading it
Yeah.
or not, you're like, no, I'm not. Like
Yeah.
there's like an antagonistic kind of tension where you're like, no, I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you could do it well, but you'd have to really have a reason to do it, and
Yeah,
where it doesn't
I've never
feel
done
like sort of gimmicky or kind of like I think a lot of like students like when they read like Note to Sixth Grade Self with Lori Moore, like they're like, oh, I want to do that too. That's so cool. But
it.
I mean, she made it work, and it does it. You actually felt like you were. I don't know if you've read that story, but you feel like you're in that story and you're a part of it and you don't feel like isolated in that way. But I don't know how many books it would work for.
Long form. Yeah, it gets tough long form for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. All right. I feel like we
Um,
covered everything. And now, like
yeah,
whenever anyone asks about POV, we'll just point them
I
to this
know.
video.
Also, let's write a novel, you and me together, where
I
I'm one
know. I
character
think
and
we
you're
do
another
have
person.
really different voices. I feel like we could do it.
Yeah, we can do it. Let's do it. Okay, we just gave ourselves homework now. Great.
I don't know. We'll see how that turns out, but to be determined, I guess.
Stay tuned.
All right. I guess everyone have a good holiday and we'll see you in
Yeah.
the new year. And
Mm.
until then, keep writing and reading, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks for the chat, Megan.
Okay,
Okay.
bye.
All right, bye.